These tariffs have now been in place now for 9 years. After Stephen Harper succeeded within 80 days of becoming Prime Minister in convincing George W. Bush to eliminate the softwood lumber tariffs and reimburse $4 billion of wrongfully collected tariffs, the tariffs went right back in under Trudeau. Again, the decision, the formal decision of the board happened after I ceased to be on the board. That is a very precise statement, precisely the opposite of the truth. The formal decision happened in October, 3 months before Mark Carney left, and he chaired the meeting. President Trump will be popping champagne when he finds out that Mark Carney is leading the Liberal Party, because he knows that Carney will sell out Canada again. Mr. Trump's comments, the President says that I am not MAGA, and that's true. I'm Canada first. Canada will never be the 51st state. I will always put my country ahead of all others. I'm in politics to bring home Canada's promise, a very simple promise. You work hard, you get a great life, in a beautiful house, on a safe street, protected by a solid border and brave troops under a proud flag. That promise has been broken now for several years after the Carney-Trudeau Liberals doubled housing costs, doubled the national debt, doubled food bank lineups, doubled gun crime, pushed $500 billion of investment out of Canada to the U.S. and gave us the worst economic growth in the G7. Now they're seeking a fourth term in office. But more immediately, on Tuesday, we're faced with yet another possible threat of tariffs. Mr. Trump, the President of the United States, has threatened that tariffs will kick in on Tuesday. We don't know if he's going to pull back again, but if the tariffs do happen, we must retaliate, and we must use the revenues mostly, almost exclusively, to cut taxes for Canadian workers and businesses to bolster our economy against those tariffs. Regardless of what the President does, though, we can't rely on him, and we can't rely on the Americans anymore. We've learned our lesson from 10 years of helplessness. We need to take back control of our economy and bring home a strong, self-reliant, and sovereign nation. Simply put, we need to bring it home. We must bring home our jobs, our resources, our production, our supply chains. We must not only harvest our resources, but we must build LNG plants and ports that can get those resources to overseas markets. That means tax cuts and greenlighting massive resource projects to bring home our jobs, businesses, and money, and to become less dependent on the Americans. It means rejecting the radical, keep-it-in-the-ground environmental agenda that Mark Carney has advised on Justin Trudeau over the last 5 years. That is why, over a month ago, I called on the government to immediately, 1, repeal the Liberal No New Pipelines Law C-69, a law that has blocked mines, pipelines, power dams, LNG plants, that would make us more independent from the United States. 2, immediately convene premiers to remove, not talk about removing, but remove exemptions in the Canadian Free Trade Deal so Canadians can trade between provinces. 3, pass a bring-it-home tax cut on work, investment, home building, energy, and making stuff in Canada. 4, immediately remove red tape and taxes to boost home building. Wouldn't it be a wonderful way to help our beleaguered lumber business and our loggers to start building some homes? If we were to axe the federal sales tax and get a deal with provinces and municipalities to take their taxes off, we could build hundreds of thousands of extra homes, creating jobs for our tradespeople and boosting demand for our domestic lumber that President Trump is threatening and that President Biden already tariffed. But despite asking for all of these things over a month ago, nothing has happened. The Liberals have done precisely nothing in the last month to make us less reliant on the Americans. They shut Parliament so that we were not even able to pass any laws, or more importantly, repeal the devastating laws and taxes that they had originally put in place. Instead, Liberals have spent the last 3 months raising money for Mark Carney and fighting for power within their own party. Speaking of pushing money out of Canada, We know that is exactly what Mark Carney did when he backed down to Donald Trump. On October 26, 2024, Donald Trump threatened tariffs against Canada to take our jobs. 6 days later, Mark Carney announced that Brookfield headquarters would move from Canada to Trump's hometown of New York City, giving Canadian jobs to Americans. And we all know, no matter what the corporate bigwigs tell you, that when the headquarters goes, the jobs and the money will follow soon after. Mark Carney did exactly what Trump wanted. He backed down and sold out our country when Canada was under attack. He did it while he was acting as Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. When asked why he moved the headquarters out of Canada, he said he had nothing to do with it, that the decision was made after he left the company in January. Yet documents show that the decision was made in October of last year at a meeting that he chaired. And then he recommended it in writing to his shareholders. Confronted about his falsehood, he now says he should have been more precise. But here's the thing. He was very precise. He said, and I quote, "The decision, the formal decision of the board, happened after I ceased to be on the board." Again, the decision, the formal decision of the board, happened after I ceased to be on the board. That is a very precise statement, precisely the opposite of the truth. The formal decision happened in October, 3 months before Mark Carney left, and he chaired the meeting. Now, he told this to all of you, the media here today. Let's digest that for a second. He's grasping the gavel and recorded the decision, which he agreed with, to move the headquarters to New York from Canada. And then just the other night, when you asked him about it, he looked all of you in the eye, and he said the board made the decision after he left the company, and he had nothing to do with it. Are you ever going to believe anything he tells you again? Don't you think he should come before you and explain himself? Mark Carney has to come before Canadians and explain. He needs to explain why he lied and why he sold out our country, why he failed to put Canada first when we were under attack. He needs to apologize to Canadians, not only for lying, but for putting his personal profits ahead of our country. Mark Carney put himself first instead of putting Canada first.
What is your reaction to the exchange in the Oval Office between Donald Trump and Vladimir Zelensky, both in English and in French, please?
We support Ukraine in its right to defend itself and to be independent. The aggressor in this conflict is Russia. Russia carried out an unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, an invasion that it has been mercilessly prosecuting for the last 3 years, and Ukraine has been the victim of that invasion. I would further add that Canada could have helped defund Putin. We could have approved the Energy East pipeline, which would have sent 1 million barrels of Western Canadian oil to the Atlantic, where it could have been shipped to Europe. We could have approved LNG projects in Quebec and Atlantic Canada, as the Germans, the Ukrainians, the Greeks, and others pleaded with us to do. All of that would have broken dependence on Putin. But Justin Trudeau said there was no business case. He killed the Energy East pipeline, and Mark Carney supported him in killing all those projects. Bill C-69 makes it impossible to send our resources out of North America. So what we need to do is reverse this radical anti-Canadian energy agenda that Carney Trudeau have imposed and rapidly approve projects so that we can sell Canadian energy to displace Russia and turn dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people.
In English?
Yes. Thank you. Let's not forget, the question was, what are we going to do to avoid or address a future softwood lumber crisis? It's not a future crisis. It's a present and past crisis. These tariffs have now been in place now for 9 years. After Stephen Harper succeeded within 80 days of becoming Prime Minister in convincing George W. Bush to eliminate the softwood lumber tariffs and reimburse $4 billion of wrongfully collected tariffs, the tariffs went right back in under Trudeau, and for 9 years the Liberals have failed to have them lifted. Not only that, but Joe Biden doubled the softwood tariffs on Canada. All of this before Trump. So the Liberals then went on to sign a trade agreement with Trump that allowed the tariffs to stay in place. That's one of the reasons we're in such a terrible mess. I will fight for an end to these softwood tariffs, and I would activate American home builders and young families looking to buy homes and say to them, look, you're paying more because of this tariff tax on building materials. So if you want more affordable homes, call your congressman and your senator and tell them to get the president to drop these ridiculous tariffs.
In your Canada First speech at your rally, you spoke about leveraging Canadian energy and our cold climate to power AI data centers in the context of the tariff threat. How specifically would you leverage those Canadian advantages in the context of a trade dispute with the United States?
Well, the Americans need data, and data takes energy. These data centers are they're energy-eating beasts. As I said in my speech, an inquiry to an AI chatbot takes 10 times as much electricity as a Google search. Meta, Microsoft, Google, and other tech giants are all buying or building nuclear power stations so that they can power their data centers. The Americans cannot keep up with their own demand. We, on the other hand, have a surplus of electricity, and a surplus that we could massively expand if we were to repeal the anti-development laws. We could build natural gas power plants in Alberta. We could get the politics out of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to speed up safe construction of both CANDU reactors and small modular reactors. We could produce even more hydroelectricity, and we could be paid hundreds of billions of dollars for that energy to power data centers. And let's make this the place to build them. If we have fast permits and clear rules, then the data centers can be built here, and that would give us more power. Imagine if the new gold, if the gold of the coming century is data, and we have it on our soil, then we're the ones with the control. That's what I mean when I say, let's bring it home.
In English and French, Mr. Poilevre, we are likely weeks away from an election call, and most polls show that once massive conservative lead has withered, and the party now appears to be in a tie with the Liberals. This has come despite a near steady barrage of conservative attacks against Liberal frontrunner, presumptive Liberal frontrunner Mark Carney, and also in the context of this Trump tariff threat, where Donald Trump has taken some constant shots at Canadian political leaders, including recently lashing out at you. Why do you think voters have appeared to be turning away from your party at this time?
Well, on Mr. Trump's comments, the president says that I am not MAGA, and that's true. I'm Canada first. Canada will never be the 51st state. I will always put my country ahead of all others. Now, I have no doubt that the president would love to have Mark Carney as Canada's Prime Minister. Why wouldn't he? Mark Carney did exactly what Mr. Trump asked for. He moved his company headquarters to Trump's hometown 6 days after the president threatened tariffs on our country. Carney supported carbon taxes on Canada, supported blocking pipelines in Canada while he invested in American coal. Carney's policies, which Trudeau implemented, pushed $500 billion investment dollars out of Canada to the U.S., exactly as Trump wanted. So Trump would love to have a weak prime minister like Mark Carney who will sell out our country and drive jobs and money abroad. He probably doesn't want a strong leader like me who will axe taxes, greenlight big projects, make this the best place in the world to do business, and bring home the hundreds of billions of dollars of investment that Carney-Trudeau Liberals have driven south. President Trump will be popping champagne when he finds out that Mark Carney is leading the Liberal Party, because he knows that Carney will sell out Canada again. By contrast, I will put Canada first. We will cut the taxes, speed up the projects, bring home production to our country. We will be a self-reliant, strong, and sovereign nation that restores Canada's promise.